The idea here today is to, let's say, talk about common misconceptions that we have about aging and rejuvenation. We always thought that the problem resides in the peripheral organs. That means the hair, the face, the skin, etc. But in fact, what science discovered is that the problem doesn't reside in the peripheral organs, but in the connections between the peripheral organs and three central organs. So central organs are organs that are connected with the whole body, and we have three of them. We've got the brain, which is through the nerves connected to the whole body. We've got the heart, which is through arteries and veins connected with the whole body. And we've got the intestines, which are connected with the lymphatic flow that goes into the veins and comes back into our system. So all these three organs, their connections to the peripheral ones is in a loop. That's a line that goes out and another line that comes in. And it comes in with the feedback, and that's how the central organs understand what's going on in the periphery, and they can give a better signal for the next thing. And they're giving signals every millisecond till every second, so we are in continuous relation with our peripheral organs. And these loops, they run through the whole body like a hologram, and they make up for about 100,000 kilometers back and forth in loops. And these loops degenerate with aging. We see that their conductivity is less with time, and that the nerves cannot reach us at the speed that we wanted. The vessels cannot reach us with the flow that we wanted, and the lymphatics cannot drain the toxins from our organs with the speed that we wanted. And that's where the peripheral organ starts to age. So why are we talking about electricity? Well, for a very long time, we thought that the body is chemical. And it is true that a lot of chemical activity is going on in the body. But curiously, the three central organs are big generators of electricity. The brain generates electricity that we can record under the form of an electroencephalogram. The heart emits current that we can record as an electrocardiogram, and the intestines are emitting signals that we can record as an electrogastrogram. Not many people are aware that there is an electrogastrogram, but it has implications when you deal with electricity and the body. So the cables themselves run on electricity. We've got the nerves, and the nerves run through electricity at a certain speed of 120 meters per second, and they do so because of the nodes of Ranvier and the Schwann cells that are living cells and need oxygen and blood flow. The blood flows through the arteries and the veins. It can be contracted and relaxed through nerves, which are electrical, but in the capillary itself, the very fine vessels of the body, the finest there are, where the exchange of oxygen happens between the cells and the red blood cells, that's where the red blood cells pass through these capillaries by an electrical current. And when this electrical current is deficient, we have less of a blood flow. And this less of a blood flow affects our whole body, affects our skin, all the cells of our organs, and affects also the nerves. And then the nerves start to degenerate. So, what do we need to get a good electrical body? We need, in fact, mainly electrolytes. These are molecules, salts, that when they dissolve in water, which is our blood is mainly water, when they dissolve in water, they start to split in ions, positive and negative ones, and they start to conduct the electricity in our body necessary for the functioning of our body. When we're getting a Baxter-like infusion of liquid because we are dehydrated, we never get plain water. We're always getting water with electrolytes. We call it saline. It's 0.9% of salts in this water. Now what happens with our body with time, while sweating and urinating, etc., we lose electrolytes. And we replace them only by kitchen salt, which is NaCl, potassium chloride. And that is not enough for our body to function. We need more than 90 electrolytes. And we're all deficient in magnesium, and we know that, and we're all deficient in many other electrolytes. So taking in electrolytes of high value like sea salt, mineral sea salt, much better than Himalaya salt, will regenerate the electrolytes in our body. If we walk barefoot, we are connected to the earth, and this earthing element will release us of all the free radicals and the negative ions, etc. And when we look at the morning sun, straight in the morning sun, without sunglasses or anything, we will get this electrical power of the morning. So all this regenerates the flow of electrolytes in our body and will make us feel healthier. So the basis of health in the body is connections with the central organs through these loops. There is another element that is very important to understand, that our cells, they hold together because of electricity. We have ion channels through the cells. And these ion channels, they're not only making the exchanges between the cells and connect the cells to each other to get an harmonious situation, but the whole connection happens through ion channels. And that's again an electrical phenomenon that keeps us together and healthy. We think of our face as a homogeneous piece of meat that we can model and change the way we want. But as we look under the hood and we peel the skin off, we see that the face is made up of compartments. And these compartments are essential to keep everything in place. And not only we have compartments, but they're also suspended with what we call retaining ligaments, which are cords that pull the face upward and hold it in place. That's why young people have a face that is nicely in place the way it should be. Another element that is very important in the face is the role of the muscles, which is not told about in all these medical congresses, but in fact, muscles create the volume in our face. Much more than anything else, volume of the face is composed of muscles. Just like the body, when we train well, the muscular volume of the body determines the shape of our body, and it fades away with time. Exactly the same thing happens in the face. So keeping the muscles in shape gives us the volume in the face. The second thing that muscles provide is what we call the tone. That means they hold everything up. When we stand with our body and we're watching whatever, nature or whatever, and the fact that we're standing straight up is the muscular tone. So from the moment that our muscular tone is not optimal, we start to curve, to walk like old people, bend forward, etc. So a muscular tone holds the face up and is essential for the lifting effect of young people. Now, the role of the muscles is also to relax after each contraction. So we contract, and babies who contract their face because they cry, it's all cramped, and from the moment that they stop crying, instantly the face relaxes totally, which doesn't happen when we age. Okay, so that is important. And why is that? Well, the muscles are connected with the brain through a two-way connection. One are signals that go from the brain to the muscle, and the other one is signals that go from the muscle to the brain back. That is how the brain knows what to do with the muscle every millisecond. So the brain is a very special organ. It takes care of our whole body, but especially of our muscles, day and night, 24/7. And it modulates its activity according to the feedback that it receives from the muscles. And it sends the message to the muscle through cables, which we call afferent nerves. And they reach the muscle till the middle of the fibers with thousands and thousands and thousands of receptors. So it's not just one connection, it's a very sophisticated connection within the muscle. And the muscle sends a signal back through the afferent nerves to the brain. When these two don't work together well, we get a lot of trouble. First of all, we lose connection with the muscle, so we lose the tone. And we think, okay, let's make a lifting, but in fact, it's only the brain, the nerve, and the muscle are mandated to create a nice natural lift. Secondly, we lose the volume because the face doesn't contract, or the muscles don't contract like permanently day and night. So they lose the volume, exactly like people who have a cast on their leg. They don't use the muscle, so they lose volume. With the muscular volume that we lose also bone. And we can see that in paraplegics that have less muscular activity because they're paralyzed, they lose bone too. And then we don't relax after each contraction because the signal doesn't go back and forth. It gets stuck in the way, in this communication of back and forth. So we are contracted in this kind of contraction. Then we lose tone and we lose volume. Now, what does it do? It changes our face. And we always say an aging face is pulling down because of gravity. But nothing is further from the truth. It doesn't fall down, it contracts. So the platysmal muscle is attached to the clavicular bone, which means that the contraction pulls our face downwards, not gravity, the contraction. On the other hand, we see that the forehead, which is attached to the galea, the scalp, upstairs, with contractions, it pulls the eyebrows up. So you see, it's not gravity at all. It's this contraction of the muscle because it cannot relax anymore that changes our face, and not gravity. Upward it pulls up, and downward it pulls down. Okay? So that is why working on the muscle is so important. And working on the muscle we can only do by working on the nerves. And working on the nerves we can only do if we regenerate the vasculature, the microvasculature to the nerves. And that we can only do if our electrical current in the body is going well. That means enough electrolytes. Okay? So this is about how the shape of the face is built. Compartments, ligaments that pull it up and hold it in place, and then these muscles that have this activity on the face of contraction, tone, and relaxation. As we age, we get all these problems of vasculature, nervous system, etc. Our retaining ligaments, the ones that pull up the face, and the compartments, they start to loosen and to lose their position in the face. And even more with loss of estrogen for women after the age of 45, 50, 55, okay? They lose this. We lose also the volume and the tone of the muscles and the relaxation after each contraction. And what we try to do is to intervene with this phenomenon. So we try to compensate for the loss of volume with fillers. One of the most, let's say, prominent fillers are hyaluronic acid fillers. And these hyaluronic acid fillers, when we inject them, they give us this volume. But we have a few problems with that, definitely when we are older. First of all, we inject them in compartments that are not in place anymore because they moved and the ligaments moved. This is one thing. Secondly, our muscles disappear, but our hyaluronic acid stays. It remains. The fact that we think that we lose it is because we lose the viscosity of the hyaluronic acid, and it migrates, it moves. So we got a lot of hyaluronic acid in the face that is hardly visible, and after a while it starts to swell. And when it starts to swell, gradually we get this puffy face. We call it the pillow face, and we are completely deformed. And when this happens, the only option we have is to remove it cautiously. But while removing it, which is a very delicate procedure and is far more costly than injecting it, we also risk a lot of hyaluronic acid in the bloodstream at once, which means that we can develop autoimmune diseases, which is very invalidating. A second element that we try to do is to lift the skin in order to lift the face. But as we all know, it's not the skin that lifts the face, it's the muscle that lifts the face, and it does it continuously in a dynamic way. So filling the face is not a very good idea. Even if we would fill it with organic products, like our own fat, which we call autologous lipofilling, autologous fat, it will still not stay in place, and it will still not be as dynamic as a muscular volume, okay? So no volume can really replace what a muscle does. No lifting with threads can replace what our muscles do. And even if we go to a surgical vertical lift, it's never vertical and it's never dynamic, because we don't activate the muscle, we pull on the SMAS. And that's the fascia which is on top of the muscles, okay? Definitely not all the techniques to heat up the skin and to tighten the skin will not help us in lifting it, because as we said, it's not the skin that lifts the face. We know it from facial paralysis like the Bell's palsy, but it's the muscle that lifts the face, okay? So we stuck there with a situation that we cannot really solve with classical meanings that we use till now. But if we manage to activate the vasculature, the nerves, and as a consequence, the muscles, we can reach what we call a vertical, dynamic, muscular, and skeletal lift. And this is the only real way to reverse time naturally, the way it used to be. But it takes also time. It takes about 6 months to heal all this and to rejuvenate the vasculature. So, no tightening of the skin, no pulling with threads or with surgery, no filling it up with products that give volume to the face, but go and rejuvenate this whole structure underneath. We can also rejuvenate the ligaments, the retaining ligaments, and the compartments. Now, there is one thing that is essential to understand. Our face has a full network of lymphatic vessels, which drain all the excess fluid and the toxins. With time, it works less well. And we get this puffy face, these toxins that stay there. We get bags, and we cannot eliminate all that. We see that with people who take toxins and people who drink a lot, or whatever it is that they do, they get this puffy, unhealthy face. So it's very important also to activate the lymphatic drainage through activating the vasculature, because the vasculature and the nerves act on the lymphatic ways to drain the excessive fluid. So all of our techniques of external rejuvenation, without taking into account of how the body really works from the inside, brought us to problems that we have a hard time to solve, such as mallow bags. Very complicated, although if we think from the inside, it's quite an easy thing to solve. An open gaze of the eyes, open eyes, with eyebrows that go a little bit up, with the eyelids that go up. We cannot achieve that externally in a nice way, but from the inside, it's a very easy thing to do. Now, fuller cheeks and a tight jawline, straight jawline, is very, very troublesome for us, because we don't act on the real culprits of aging. But once we go from the inside and deal with that, it's piece of cake. It's very easy to do. Same thing goes for the double chin, where we have a lot of lymphatics that don't work well, and we've got all these muscles of the mandibular area that are not tight, we can reach the elimination of the double chin and tightening of the neck in a very easy way. Now, what about the skin? We talked about the ligaments, we talked about the muscles, and even the bone that regenerates. What about the skin? The skin is mainly determined by the dermis, and this dermis has a cell which is called the fibroblast, which produces the collagen, the elastin, and the hyaluronic acid. It maintains the hydration and the tensile strength of the skin. Now, this collagen and this hyaluronic acid is resorbed, and every 6 months we can state that we have a totally different skin, because we have different collagen and different hyaluronic acid, not the previous ones that we had. And I avoid the word new collagen and new hyaluronic acid every 6 months on purpose, because what we produce is not new. It is as old as our factory is, which means if we have a fibroblast which is 70 years old and in bad shape, we will get 70-year-old collagen and 70-year-old hyaluronic acid. So, if we start to stimulate this old fibroblast, it's like stimulating somebody who is 70 years old with maybe a double espresso, maybe a little bit of sugar, try to get him into the race, but he will never perform like somebody who is 20 years old. So, stimulating the fibroblast with PRP, with needling, with boosters, etc., will not give us this great factory that we want. Now, if we go to the outcome of the fibroblast, which means the collagen and the hyaluronic acid, and we try to act there by heating up the collagen. When we heat up the collagen, it shrinks. And when it shrinks, our skin looks tighter nearly immediately. Now, what heats up this collagen? All the lasers that are producing heat, we call them the infrared lasers. All the radio frequencies which produce heat, whether it's needling or bipolar outside or whatever type of radio frequency it is, heats up the collagen and tightens it. All the kinds of ultrasound focalized like HIFU, etc., which heat this collagen in points and make it contract. They create contracted collagen. And what happens with the contracted collagen? Exactly what happens with all the rest of our collagen. It's eaten up within the 6 months, and we produce again collagen, which I don't call new collagen. I call it collagen of the age that you are. So we didn't solve anything on the long term, okay? So, using boosters for the fibroblast, using hyaluronic acid and boosters for the dermis will give you a very short-term result, because bringing in hyaluronic acid goes quicker than asking the fibroblast to produce it, but it's not sustainable, okay? So, what we're striving for is to create a younger factory, that means a younger fibroblast. And we do that by connecting it to a healthy loop that is vascular, a healthy loop that is nervous, and a healthy loop that is lymphatic. That means we are regenerating the biofeedback loops. Now, there is another thing that is very popular now, is to activate our platelets. We all have a very, very small fraction of platelets in our blood. When we take them out of our blood, like 10 cc, we centrifugate it, we take only the platelets and we inject it. And we activate it with trauma, because that's how platelets are activated. We get what we call PRP, platelet-rich plasma. It has an effect because the growth factors are released from the platelets. But there is a far better way to do that. And the far better way is to take the bloodstream that is already in the face, already in the hairs, already in all our tissues, and activate the platelets through electromodulation. Studies have shown that electromodulation can release growth factors from our platelets far better than trauma and thrombin do, which means we can generate our platelets and growth factors in our tissues without any trauma and with a lot more volume through electromodulation. We have also ways to fight what we call elastosis, old skin and old collagen, by inciting the fibroblasts to produce far more and healthy collagen through electromodulation and certain substances. So getting a nice skin from the inside is totally possible. Well, by connecting the skin to the central organs, by connecting the skin cells to each other, there is a kind of harmony and repair that is taking place. And this harmony and repair can heal a lot of skin problems that we have right now. Definitely everything that has to do with vasculature and inflammation. Why? Because electromodulation on the skin works anti-inflammatory. And when we say anti-inflammatory, we think about the pigmentations that are a result of inflammation, which means post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation and deep dermal melasma. These are two things that bother us very much because we can't deal with them with lasers or with peelings or with others without creating even more inflammation. So the anti-inflammatory action of electromodulation is a great way to deal with that. Now, we can also deal with cuperosis or telangiectasis in the face, where we activate the dermis to build more collagen and hyaluronic acid, which makes these reactive blood vessels shrink to their normal level and reduce the facial redness. The question is, if we can regenerate the skin with electromodulation, do we need cosmetics? And the truth is, we don't need many cosmetics. We need to clean the face from pollution. We need to protect it from sun rays, which are in abundance, too many sun rays, because a little bit we need to build up our vitamin D3. Cleaning is important because it resets the skin after a day outside, and we know that pollution is one of the biggest killers and one of the biggest aging agents, certainly in people who live near industries or the harbor, etc. Okay? So, and then what we need essentially is to give that skin a layer before we put on makeup, because the skin is not meant to accept makeup on the skin. You take a young girl, 14, 15, 16, with perfect skin, makeup will not hold on her skin. Why? Because you need like a ground layer, a basic layer, like paint, before it will hold. So this is the essence. Now, when we're talking about moisturizers, if you have a healthy dermis, you have a lot of water reservoir. And if you have a healthy epidermis, it doesn't evaporate that quickly. So you keep your moist level normal. But you have to maintain that. And that's why we have to maintain the cohesion with electromodulation. We all have a tendency to lose our hair. Even those who have very thick hair till a very old age, they still don't have that thickness that they had when they were young. The main reason why some lose their hair and some don't is genetic. We cannot fool ourselves. Even if we don't do anything, we will have bald people and people with a lot of hair. Now, what can we do? We can do a lot, at least for these intermediate people who can preserve their hair despite the fact that they are genetically challenged. Now, we always talk about testosterone, or what we would call DHT, dehydrotestosterone. It's true that testosterone plays a role, but not as big as we think. We have women with less testosterone that lose their hair, and men with a lot of testosterone who have a full head of hair. We know that our sensitivity to testosterone depends on our genetics. So if genetically we are not sensitive, high levels of testosterone will not affect us. On the contrary, sometimes later in life we need a little bit of testosterone to keep our hair healthy. But there are a few other things that are of great importance to hair loss. And one of them is oxygen in the capillaries of the hair follicles, which means the very tiny vessels around the hair follicles. We talked about that these capillaries and the red blood cells there, they function on an electrical current, which brings them from one part to the other. So people who have a bad circulation in the tiniest vessel of around the hair follicles will lose hair quicker, and they will have what we call dormant or sleeping hair follicles. As long as these hair follicles are not dead, we can revive them and bring them back to their normal state. On top of that, these hair follicles are connected to nerves, which bring in the stem cells necessary for a new hair cycle, and also the drainage of lymphatics, which drain the toxins away from the hair follicle. We also saw that electromodulation has an anti-inflammatory effect, which is important in hair loss. And we also know that it releases the growth factors within our platelets, just like PRP, but much stronger than that. All this combined, the blood vessels, the nerves, the lymphatics, the anti-inflammatory effect, and the release of growth hormones from the platelets will bring dormant hair follicles to mature, full, thick hair follicles, which produce also thick and healthy hair. Now, those who are genetically challenged, they might lose their hair at the age of 80 or 20 years old. In my case, for instance, I was bald even before I finished university. While I was a student, and in our family it runs, the baldness runs, and we hardly have hair. So people like me, when they have my age, which is 63 plus, nothing works for them. Not even a hair transplant, because we don't have enough reservoir for hairs to bring them from the back to the front, okay? But a lot of them between 25 years old and 50 years old with moderate baldness, which means from stage 2 to stage 5 of an Alvey Hamilton, will benefit from electromodulation to grow their hair back, okay? That is important to understand. Now, we not only deal with growing new hair that we lost, but also with people who lose hair suddenly because of a trauma, because of a hormonal situation or stress or whatever it is. And this also can be stopped through electromodulation. Then we have those people who just had a hair transplant and want to accelerate the growth of their transplanted follicles, and at the same time preserve their natural hair around the hair follicle. Because when this natural hair will get lost, the hair transplants will be visible, and that's not only not nice, but not all of them have enough hairs on the back of their head to transplant again. So it's vital for these people to keep their hair healthy with electromodulation. The last category is mostly women who have healthy hair follicles, but who damage them through manipulations. And one of the essential manipulations nowadays are extensions, which damage the hair follicles. And the second one is perms, and the third one is bleaching of the hair. Because they do have healthy hair follicle to start with, electromodulation works very quickly on them, very easily, and they get strong hair despite these bad manipulations that they do on their hairs. Now, we hear a lot about pills for hair loss. There are pills with a lot better ingredients and more natural ingredients and much more concentrated. But the idea of these pills, these food supplements, is to provide you the building blocks. The workers, they come from the bloodstream and the nerves and the drainage, etc. But you need the building blocks, because if your workers are there to build your house and there are no building blocks, you will not build your house. But if the building blocks are there and the workers didn't come, you won't build your house either. So you need both of them. But it's not that swallowing the pills alone will give you new hair. But at least you compensate for all the deficiencies that we have in the food. Cellulite. With cellulite we mean this orange peel, dimpled effect of the thighs, mostly affecting women because they have a different way of attaching the skin to the muscles and a different way to create these compartments in the thighs and the legs. So how do we deal with that? It's a very difficult situation and there is no real good solution for that till now. But electromodulation provides us with new opportunities. The first opportunity is to remodel the skin, to tighten the skin, so that when the skin is tighter, all the cellulite is less visible. Second element is to get rid of these dimples, because these are retractions, fibrous retractions of the skin, which is connected to the muscles and create these dimples. A third element is, because we are draining the area, the lymph drainage of the area and the activation of the circulation, the fat layer gets thinner and thinner, which means we don't have these big thighs anymore. And what we see is people who do that several times, they keep these thinner thighs with less dimples and a tighter skin for years. It's not something that disappears immediately. And because there is no real solution for all of this, electromodulation provides us a new way to deal with cellulite. Every treatment aims at the problem in a selective way. It doesn't want to treat the whole body. It wants only to treat the problem. So selectivity in a treatment is very important. We have drugs that go in a selective way to the target organ, but lasers have been developed also to target specifically a certain color in the skin. We know that from hair removal, dark hairs work much better than light hairs. But now with electromodulation, we open medicine up to a new kind of selectivity, which is selective electromodulation. Now, selective electromodulation, we have seen that with several cases. Wherever the body is damaged, cracked, broken, we see that the electrical current passes there with a different speed, with a different heat, etc. This area has different electrical properties. And that's where electromodulation works far better on these diseased places. What is, for instance, a diseased place? Scarring, pitted scars for people who had acne in the past. We want to target specifically these pitted scars, and electromodulation works very well. Enlarged pores. Striae, which means this vergeture, how we call it, these stretch marks that women have after birth, or that young people have even after puberty. Okay? Now, even broken bones or damaged tendons have a different electrical property, and we see that electromodulation works there first. So it's a new way to look in a targeted treatment for these ailments. Electromodulation provides also mental relaxation and an anti-stress treatment. And the correlation between stress, mental stress, and aging has been shown. So when we are more stressed mentally, we age quicker, we get the contraction of these muscles which are involuntary, and our face becomes distorted, our skin becomes altered. So we want to cut off the stress. So when you do a treatment with electromodulation, not only you connect the skin, the muscles, etc., but you also get a relaxation of the mind, which contributes very favorably to all this aging process. So it's an extra way to rejuvenate. Now, rejuvenating from the inside is real rejuvenation, because we go back the way we were before. And if we compare that to external trials of rejuvenation, that I would not call rejuvenation but remodeling, you're getting, how would I say, prosthesis and external foreign material to make your face change in shape and to resemble the way you looked before, but you will never resemble the way you looked before, because all the structures inside have changed. Now, what are the pros and the cons? When you are still young and your muscles still work fairly well, and your ligaments are still okay, and your skin is okay, and your retaining ligaments are okay, and everything is still in place, you can get away with a lot of it. You can get away with threading, you can get away with injectables, you can get away with botulinum toxin, etc. But when you get older, these things will catch up and you will not look natural anymore. People at the age of 60, 70, which have done that all their life, they look weird. Why? Timing plays a role, sustainability plays a role, and you will see that with natural effect, even the cost will drop over time, and of course the side effects will not be there. I believe that electromodulation is an experience for the skin, the body, and the mind, and it can provide you true, natural, and lasting rejuvenation.